Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to make a short video to share a little bit more about my Reaper session setup, as well as various tools, resources, features that might be helpful in terms of making your creative process as efficient and as optimized as it can be. So if you're anything like me, when I'm working on creative asset work stuff, I only want to focus on the creative stuff and I don't want to have to worry about anything else in terms of, miscellaneous things that might distract you from getting the sound or idea that's in your head down onto the paper. A lot of you guys have been asking, what is this actual Reaper theme itself? And how you can actually set it up in a way that is similar to mine. So, okay, first things first, what is the theme? I'm just going to answer it straight away. It is the theme called Hydra. So this is the Hydra theme. I'll also leave this link in the description below. You can just download this zip file, you drag and drop into your Reaper session, and it should automatically apply this new theme. So as you can see with the pictures, it's basically identical. Obviously, there are some differences, specifically being this toolbar up here, as well as global sampler, which I'll talk about later. But as you can see, like just side by side, it's pretty much identical. So yeah, that's the theme. This was actually a template given to me by a close friend of mine, but all you have to do is just go to the theme adjuster here under options, and you can kind of play with the different colors and shadings and all that kind of fun stuff. So next I wanted to talk quickly about how I like to use the toolbar. TLDR, I don't really use many of these buttons here. The only one that I actually use on a daily basis is this RX script, and this is literally just it's just this one, open items in primary external editor. The way to set it up in the toolbar is you go to hit add here, you go to the script you want. So say I want this one, hit select, and there you go. We have a new button over here. Basically what this does, it opens your media file in a external editor. The way to set that up is by going to the Reaper preferences, going all the way down to external editors, and you can configure what the default external editor is. So this is cool because when I'm editing raw recordings, all I have to do is just run this command or click the button. There we go. We have the file that's opened up in RX, and that eliminates the need to, render this out to the desktop and then re-import it back to RX here, which is one less step in the process. I don't really use any of these buttons here. I think these are just inherited from my friend's templates. The ones I do use are these custom ones here. So to quickly go through what they all do, this one, left, right, folds down channels of a media file. So for example, if I only want the left channel, I just hit L, it's going to pull the only left channel. And this is cool because it allows you to have more control as to what specific sound you want from the source file. If there's only a sound that you want on the right channel, you don't have to include the left channel because it will muddy up the mix. Button here explodes these two channels into individual tracks. Press the button and we have two channels separated out. All this does, this one, it just makes all of the tracks to 0 decibels. This one closes all subprojects. This one sets the render settings from mono to stereo so that I don't have to do this clicking here, and it configures the channels setting in the render window. And these are just miscellaneous things that apply various rendering presets. Cool, so that's it for the toolbar. Next, I want to talk quickly about one of my favorite tools in Reaper, and that is the Radial Menu, developed by Luxena, which is a very cool and easy way to apply plugins to your sound. In Reaper, when I first started, one of the biggest frustrations is when I try to put a plugin, I have to click here and then manually type in the whole plugin. Imagine doing that like 5-6 times per track. Like it gets tedious really fast. So this plugin solves that problem by allowing you to assign the shortcuts directly to the, slots on the wheel, similar to how the weapons in GTA 5 is set up. So say that I want to put some compression on this. All I need to do is go here, go to my compressor, and there we go. We have put the compressor on the media item. And that is distributed via Repack, and I will link the repository in the description below. To set up the Radial Menu, which is what the script is called, you want to run this one. And it allows you to customize each of these wheels as well as its children slots. So that is one of my most used plugins. I essentially have it set up where all of my favorite plugins are easy to access. And that way, when I'm being creative, I don't have to worry about typing out the whole plugin name or even just look through this uninspiring long list of plugins, I guess. Yeah, no, I'm good. The next thing I want to talk about is the global sampler. If any of you guys have seen my previous videos, you'll probably know that I use this a lot. To go over it very quickly, it's basically just a tool that is constantly recording the output of your Reaper DAW. And what that means is you don't have to now click the red record button. Instead, you can just process sounds however you like, and then that output is going to be recorded automatically. For example, I'm working with this source here, and I decide to make a very drastic change and like pitching it down a lot. Okay, it sounds horrible, but let's say that I really like that source material for whatever reason. I can just go up here and grab it. And now I have that take. It's very useful for capturing happy accidents because oftentimes you don't know what cool stuff will come out. The last thing I want to talk about, this plugin here is called MFX List. The cool thing with this one is it allows you to display all of the plugins on the side here. So it's very useful if, say that I'm working in a big session and I'm unable to open each of individual's track to its maximum track height. Even in this kind of compressed, squashed form, I'm still able to see what my processing chain is, and that's helpful because I don't have to expand all of the track heights and go through them one by one to find the plugin that I want to change. Cool, so that's kind of basically it for the session setup. It's nothing fancy, but I found that this has worked well for me so far. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is generating variations and some of the tools that I use to make that process a little easier. So here in this example, let's say we have a sound. And oftentimes with sounds, you want more than one variation, so it's not repetitive for the player. What I used to do before is I would duplicate the sound 3 times and then kind of like manually tweak various parameters. So stuff like rate, volume, pitch, you get that idea. And just kind of try to alter the layers to create variation. But after doing it for a couple of years, I realized, I wonder if there's a way to easily do that. And this is a tool that I recently completed. Essentially allows you to automate some of those processes and batch process all of the media items for you, so you don't have to go through one by one and tweak it that way. How this works, it's very simple. You want to select all of the layers in a variation. I like to hit this button, create variations, and just hit this button a bunch of times. So then now we have 6 variations. Let's take a listen. So yeah, as you can see, it's not the perfect sound, but for some of these, there's some cool ideas that could totally be used with just a couple of small tweaks. You also have the option to create regions because a lot of folks in game audio use that for batch processing and batch importing into Wise. That makes it easier as well. And finally, you also have the option to implode all of the variations within one media item as separate takes on top of each other. As you can see, for most files in source material libraries, you'll see that there's actually multiple variations within one file. And before, I would have to like manually scroll through the file like this to access those different variations. So with this tool, you can combine all of those variations with one button. And with all the takes stacked onto one file, you're then now able to randomize the takes. And now it's just randomizing all the takes. And that also works if you select multiple media items as well. The preset that I like to use most will also come with the tool. So you can just use the exact settings that I found the most successful. Cool. So that's the variation generator tool. Another tool that I like to use a lot is actually a renaming tool. So it's a pretty simple tool. It was inspired by the tool that has the same name called Fast File Renamer. I really love this tool because it allows you to batch rename items super quickly on the system level. But I found that you can't do it with files that are living within Reaper. So I made the same thing that has all of the same functionalities as the desktop version. How it quickly works is pretend that I want to submit this to Wise and put it into the game. You have to kind of give it a specific naming convention. So for example, maybe, I don't know, just temp. As you can see, it kind of helps you automatically rename the file. This also works for batch processing. So if I have like 3 separate files here that I want to remove, say temp VO for whatever reason, yeah, there you go. Just helps make that process a little easier. All right, cool. So next I wanted to talk quickly about how I like to use subprojects and how it helps me keep the session organized when working with many different media items and many different tracks. So here is a redesign that I did like a super long time ago, but I'm just gonna play a little bit just so you have an idea of what kind of projects this might be. Cool, but as you can see on this main session, it might look like, okay, that entire last part is just one sound, but actually this is a entirely separate project that consists of all of the layers that make up this entire sequence of sounds. So if I double click here, it's gonna open up that entire children project. So yeah, as you can see, that last part for this redesign is actually this many tracks. You can already imagine how many tracks there will be if I didn't use any of these subprojects for this entire video. And for me, that just makes tweaking sounds and making changes very difficult. Cool, so how you can set that up is to select the 2 different tracks that you want to move to the subproject. Say I want to move these 2 bottom tracks. All I need to do is hit create new subproject using this action item, move tracks to subproject, and then now you have a new subproject here. As to how to get the waveform to show up here and actually have the sound be present in the master project, we want to save and render the PROX file. Over here, save project and render RPP PROX. As you can see here, we have just created a new subproject that include the 2 different layers of that sound. So taking it a step further, I want to talk quickly about how do I actually organize the subprojects themselves. So let's say this session is already pretty clean, but as you can imagine, when you're kind of working through a redesign, it's very common to have like muted tracks kind of nested in between here, right? And for me, it just creates a lot of visual clutter and it makes finding what layer does what very difficult. So I like to use this script, which I wrote, that moves all of the muted tracks to the bottom of the session. If I run the script here, and it's actually a combination of 2 scripts that I have, which is move out of the tracks and also remove the unused tracks. At the bottom, the session lives all of my muted tracks. The empty tracks are also deleted. And if you open up the script, you don't have to open up in VS Code, but the Reaper development environment also works, is you can actually customize what you wanna count as unused. After giving my initial pass of the entire cinematic, I can just run the script and it's gonna clean up the entire session with 1 click of a button. So yeah, there's also a variety of other scripts that I wrote that's also on my GitHub. You can feel free to check it out if that's of any interest to you. Now I wanted to quickly talk about Whoosh. As you've seen in my previous videos, I like to use this a lot. And the way that I like to use this is route the children tracks into the parent. So something like this, and kind of do the processing here. But a lot of you guys have been asking, like, how do I actually set that up? You can copy these exact settings and it should give you that feature to feed the audio output of the children tracks into the input of the parent track. And the final thing I wanted to talk about is my master chain. Sometimes we forget to talk about it in my video breakdowns because I just forget it's there. But basically, there's actually not much happening with the master. I usually have the combination of GoFast, some sort of limiter, Pro L2 if I want something that's cleaner, and I use TR51 if I want something that's a little thicker and has a little bit of the nice analog saturation. OTT to like 10% to taste, sometimes I don't even turn it on, and basically just a little bit of EQ. And it's pretty simple because I truly believe that how to create a really good sound comes from the person's choices of which layers to layer on top of each other instead of just putting in plugin chains and kind of hope for the best. For my monitoring effects, I have global sampler, which I mentioned earlier. Insights 2. I don't actually use this, but you can use this for like the stereo width, the levels. And the final thing I want to talk about is Sound ID reference window. This is one of my favorite plugins because it allows you to essentially apply a room EQ wherever you go. How this works is you spend 30 minutes with the microphone. The program learns the frequency response as well as the reverb reflections in your room, and it applies the EQ to offset whatever value that might be. So I can make sure that whatever I put out will translate well to other systems. Once I got this, it has improved my mixes so much, and I can't recommend it enough. Yeah, that kind of wraps it up about it. Those are kind of like the main things that push the needle the most in terms of enhancing my workflow. Please feel free to let me know if there's anything specific about my session setup that you would like to see, or just any specific questions about the tooling stuff. Yeah, I hope you guys have found this helpful, and thanks for staying to the end. I'll see you in the next one.